Hi, everyone. So we'll get started. So apologies for the late start, but we just wanted to get everyone seated comfortably. So good afternoon to you all, and welcome to our homecoming celebration for Physics 300. So many of you may not know me because I realized yesterday that I was either not born or wasn't here before you had left. So I'll just put a face to a name. So I'm Louise Bradley, and I'm a professor here in the School of Physics. So I'm the person you've been getting all these emails from. So thank you very much for your anecdotes and stories and things that people have sent me back. It's been really fun. And it's absolutely wonderful to have so many of our alumni coming back to share this occasion with us, because I think it's a sign for us that people must have had good memories and must have had good times when they were here, and that they feel still a strong connection with the school to have made the journey back and to share their afternoon with us for the Physics 300 celebrations. So we feel really privileged actually to have you all present. And it's quite extraordinary. When we were preparing for this event, we set out to do workshops so that we could engage with the next generation and hopefully to inspire them. And then it grew so that we could have events which were of a cultural nature. And luckily we have a poet in residence who had, and we had a wonderful night last night with Professor McGovern's sonnets on the life and times of Hamilton, who of course is from the school. So then we said, okay, you know, we have to do something special for our alumni. And when we started, I never imagined that we would have 8 decades of alumni in the room at the same time. And so that's quite an achievement. So one of our oldest graduates is sitting here in the front. Right. Jean will tell you a little bit about Trinity in the 1950s, so we'll hear it firsthand. And we also have Marion Woods with us, who's the daughter of Ernest Walton, who's a graduate also of the school from the 1960s. So we are really covering all the decades up to the present time. So I'm not going to delay any further, just to say I hope you enjoy the afternoon with us. And I'm going to hand you over now to our head of school, Professor Jonathan Coleman.
Thank you very much, Louise. So the first thing I want to say is that I've certainly done nothing towards this. Louise and her team have done an absolutely fantastic job, and these things do not organize themselves. There's been a year of work in putting this whole thing together. So let's start off with a round of applause for Louise, Charles, and the team. So my name is Jonathan Coleman. I'm the current head of school, but for today's purposes, much more importantly, I'm an alumnus of this school. I did my undergrad and my PhD here in the 90s, and that's what today is all about, the alumni. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome you here to this event. We're celebrating the 300th anniversary of the School of Physics, and I think Eric Finch will tell us a little bit about the history and about what that actually means. Later on today. The anniversary is not today, it's Sunday, but I think we thought we'd get more people on a Friday. So in any case, it's great that you all came, and it's great to see so many familiar faces. So I see people here that taught me, that were students with me in the 90s, and that I have taught. So it's great. There's such a fantastic spread of people. So we're really and truly delighted. So everyone in this room is connected by physics. And I actually don't get to say that very often in social occasions. But specifically, we're all connected by the School of Physics here in Trinity. And really, I think we can all agree that it's a great school, and going here was a great experience. Although I do suspect there's a little bit of self-selection in the audience. The people that absolutely hated it perhaps didn't come. So we defined alumni here in the broadest possible sense. So people who are undergrads, postgrads, postdocs, staff, everyone, all alumni and all welcome here. So that's really the main thing. It's a broad and inclusive event. So as well as the younger folk, and I believe there are some relatively young folk here today, we've got one alumnus from the 1950s, we've got a number from the 60s, and we've got a bunch from the 1970s. So we've got a great spread. And as I understand it, there's even a 1970s table at the banquet tonight. And I expect that will be the rowdy table. Yes, indeed. I am sitting at the next table and I will be keeping my eye on you 70s folk. So the school has changed immeasurably since the 1950s. I mean, clearly there's been a changeover in staff. So I am the 4th Erasmus Smith professor since Ernest Walton was here. So there's a constant turnover. But for the people that haven't been here in a while, the most visible change will be in the buildings that make up the school. So in the 1950s, there was only this building. And then in the early 60s, a space crisis. So Provost, this is a feature of the university, it's not just today. A space crisis forced the building of what was called the Walton extension. And then in the late 1970s, the Dixon Hall, which I think was used for exams and dances, I think that was converted, was joined on to the extension and was converted into an undergraduate teaching lab. And then there were offices and a tea room upstairs. And I remember doing my undergraduate labs in that building. And actually the first academic that I properly met in the first lab on the first Friday of first year was you, Eric. And it was a fantastic experience. So it's funny looking back, because I really had to remind myself what the place was like back then. And one memory really stuck out. And it was for people of my vintage. The trudge up the steps in the Dixon Hall to check the final year exam results, which were posted on the wall of the tea room. And those were the longest, whatever, 25 steps of anyone. Hands up, who remembers doing that? Yeah, it's not just me. I wouldn't want to do that again. Okay, so there's been big changes, and anyone who's arrived today and hasn't been here for a while will have seen that the buildings have completely changed. We, of course, still have this building, and we'll always have it. But in fact, most of our teaching and research work is done in the Snyan building, which is next door, and then the Cran building, which is over on Pierce Street. So there have been very, very big changes. But I think the important thing is that the ethos of the school has not changed. Really, we strongly still believe in things like friendship, fellowship, collegiality, collaboration, and really giving the students the best possible experience of their time in Trinity. And I really think that's what's important. So that's enough. You didn't come here to listen to me. I would like to invite the Provost to come up, and she will.
Hello, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. This is like being back lecturing engineers where there was always somebody coming in just at that moment. But I'm absolutely delighted to be here at this absolutely wonderful homecoming celebration. And I think it's pretty amazing to think that this school is 300 years old. And not alone is that wonderful in and of itself. I think that speaks to how much it shaped Trinity. I mean, this school existed for the better part of Trinity's existence. And what we are today is because of all of you in this room. So I think that's really, really important. It's an outstanding school. It has incredible scholars. And I think we are just completely proud. I can't see Johnny over there, but we're very, very proud of it. I was reading a little bit about the history. I know Eric is going to give us a good history in a minute, but obviously I look back at the first chair of natural and experimental philosophy back in 1724. And it was really, really interesting. So it was Erasmus Smith's chair. And when I was looking at how it was funded, because obviously money is always on my mind as well, I noticed that the Erasmus Trust Fund had an excessive amount of money. And I thought to myself, what a problem to have, wouldn't you love it? And then that an act of parliament had to be enacted for them to allow to spend that surplus. And they were able to spend that surplus on a number of things in Trinity, including the Erasmus Smith chair that now in natural philosophy. So this was a pretty amazing thing. And from that, all of this wonderful thing stemmed. And I was also interested at the time that the Act of Parliament actually stipulated what the professors were supposed to do. So apparently there was a very onerous load if you had to give 4 public lectures a year. And then on top of that, actually, you had to send 2 of those lectures to the Erasmus Trust so they might publish it. So there was also a publication rule that was imposed at the time. But the interesting thing is that the other chair, they didn't bother doing that, but you'd be glad to know that that Richard, he did send his notes, and that's actually what led to the very famous textbook that was published after he died. So it was really, really interesting to see that. And you know, one of the things I found as I was looking at the history, that the things that are happening then matter so much now. So that Act of Parliament, which dictated what you do, I mean, obviously that doesn't exist anymore, but today we still fight to push back the government influence and how they over-influence us. So it's really interesting to see these resonant points in history as well. So from that step 300 years ago, this incredible and wonderful school has come about. This school has just incredible achievements and huge impact in the world. And if you look around it, and you heard Johnny describe there a minute ago how it's changed in terms of the buildings, but if you look, you will see incredible research in material science, photonics, astrophysics, quantum. You will see things like CRAN and AMBER that are a huge impact, the Quantum Alliance, the Centre for Sustainable Aviation, and much more. So what I see in the school is fundamental science that is brilliant, scholars that are brilliant, students that are brilliant, students that are completely motivated, and constantly new and wonderful things happening. So if you came back in another year's time, there'd probably be something else new and fantastic too. And I think there's an enormous amount to thank the school for. Just this week, at the beginning of this week, you probably all know that Ireland is trying to become an associate member of CERN, and physics were playing a role again. At a crucial time in terms of making sure that that association happens, and that they can see, CERN can see that there's enthusiasm and people here who want to work with it. And I've had the pleasure myself, I see John there, I've had the pleasure myself of working with people in the past, and some of the research I've done firsthand with the people in the school. And for me, I've always saw a huge dedication and that deep commitment to that kind of fundamental science. It's just being amazing. So I wanted to make a kind of serious point, and it kind of resonates a bit from what Johnny was saying about space. And when you're here at a celebration, I suppose you should be celebrating all the good things, but I think it's also important to say that this school has achieved a huge amount despite the challenges. And one of the challenges we face currently is a challenge about infrastructure. And if you look across Ireland at the moment, most of the infrastructure is over 15 years old, about 75% of it is over 15 years old. And as a whole, we're struggling. And I was reminded too, again, when I was looking back at history, so this building came about because of the work of Fitzgerald. And at the time, he was very cognizant of how other countries around the world had good investment in their infrastructure. And he had to, you know, he did a report in front of the Senate, and he argued, and there was a team put together in Trinity. And thankfully, through a generous benefaction, the school was built, and the School of Botany. But again, there was a person speaking out and saying, okay, if we want to compete, we need these kind of resources. And unfortunately, we find ourselves in that kind of a moment at the moment. So while you're all here celebrating and being completely proud of this, I would also ask you all to speak up in every opportunity you can, because to have this kind of brilliant work continued, we also need to find better ways of supporting it. So just to say that. I wanted to comment on 2 other things that I think are really incredible. Well, there are many millions of things that are incredible about this department or the school, but I also wanted to comment on the Athena Swan Bronze. So I was standing behind, actually, I was standing behind the woman who was from the 1950s coming in the gate, and I heard you say, actually, oh, I remember the first time I came through these doors, and it was really, really amazing. But it is no small achievement for this school to get the Athena Swan Bronze Medal. And when I look at your website as well, I love the way women are featured prominently in it. And I think that is really, really important. And that, to me, speaks to the fact that the values that Johnny spoke about earlier really, really matter, and speaks to inclusivity. And I think that's really something to behold as well. The programme for Physics 300 is just stellar. I was delighted to see the Walton Club feature so much. I see their signs over there. I think it's the most inspiring, wonderful, and no wonder you have future generations who want to come and do physics when you have things like the Walton Club reaching out. And I've gone a couple of Saturdays myself, and the spirit there is just amazing, the way they pass it on to school kids. Brilliant to see the Institute of Physics, brilliant to see that not alone do you care about talking to yourselves in all of the very, I suppose, depth of knowledge that you share among each other, but that you're concerned about how you communicate to the wider world around you, and you want your love of physics to pass on. And I was delighted to see, I was wondering what that stuff was doing here, Stefan. I shouldn't have doubted that yourself and Richard will be doing something odd and wonderful with sound. So it's really, really great. I too want to thank the alumni who are here. It speaks huge volumes that people have bothered to come back. This isn't a trivial or typical thing either. It's not always the case that you can, you know, I love that people love Trinity so much, but there's something extra special here today that you've all bothered to come back for this event. I know as well, as part of the program, we are going to be hearing from some of the fantastic journeys that we have, that alumni have had here. So I believe Michael Maloney, CEO of the American Institute of Physics, Rhian Murray Thomas, Chief Executive of the Green Finance Institute, John Mangan, and as somebody told me, his LinkedIn page says precociously retired from the European Commission, and Vivian Williams, entrepreneur and CEO of Celex, and John McInerney, retired professor of physics in UCC, will all be talking about their journeys. And what I love about that list is that list really shows you the vast array of places people have gone, and I think that is really, really amazing. So all it leaves me to do is to just do a few thanks. I want to say a very special thanks to the retired staff who gave so generously of their time and talents for this commemoration. I know, Iggy, I heard that the event, and Louise mentioned it as well, was wonderful last night. And Eric, I'm really looking forward to how you're squashing 300 years into 40 minutes. Apparently, Eric had a choice of 20 or 30 or 40 minutes, and he wisely went for the 40, I think. I want to thank the alumni who've generously given their time for the research masterclasses, the communication science workshops, and for all of these celebrations. I want to acknowledge the School of Physics and all they've done to fund this, the Institute of Physics for their sponsorship of the Trinity Walton Clubs. And really then as well, just to thank the Physics 300 committee. I know, Louise, Johnny mentioned you already, but you've done amazing work, as has Chris Smith, Charles Patterson, and Ken Concannon. And it is, it's really, people these days are just so busy, they have no time for anything. And it takes a special kind of generosity for people to give their time to something like this. So a huge thanks from me for you doing that. And then just to end, Iggy, I'm borrowing a line from your poem, and I don't know whether you used it last night, like solder weeping off the soldering iron. And you say in it, life is refracted through all 4 Ps: prayer, physics, politics, and poetry. And today it's just wonderful. We are here to celebrate the school's amazing contribution to the life in Trinity and much further afield. Thank you.